The Backrooms, the Infinite Labyrinth. Entity number 42, the Memory Worm. Concord Entity Classification System. Habitats, various. Indexed Entity Threat Score, Danger 5, Intelligence D+. Class, Zoofoid. Properties, reality altering, unique, aggressive, neurological. Image caption: an artist's depiction of the memory worm bearing down on a helpless victim. Description: the memory worm is a colossal creature, bearing great similarity to the front room species Arenicola marina. The worm exhibits a wide variety of metaphysical abilities, which it uses mainly for pursuing its prey. The entity's reality warping abilities are highly potent, often causing wanderers near the worm to report intense and unnatural feelings of comfort or nostalgia, even by the standards of the Backrooms. This passive effect that the worm exudes likely exists to pacify its potential prey in order to make consumption easier. The mouth of the worm opens to reveal a vortex of razor-sharp teeth that seem to lead endlessly down its gullet. Victims caught in the worm's spell are almost always lured in and quickly devoured. Biology. Accounts of the memory worm's biology vary from telling to telling, as sightings of this creature are considered extremely rare, and survival encounters are rarer still. The worm is always described to be a mammoth of an entity, with an estimated size anywhere between 300 to 600 meters in length. While of impressive size, it typically has at least 4/3 of its body buried underground at any given point. It is thought to use this extra length for leverage while chasing its prey. With a girth of 5 meters, its size is, overall, comparable to an extremely large subway or passenger train. The exterior of the entity is composed of a dense yet flexible layer of hardened skin, which is a disturbingly human shade of pink, unlike the normal off-brown color of regular worms. It is thought to be dry in texture, with visible cracks on its surface, and it provides the creature with what could be compared to natural armor. Conventional weaponry has been proven to be ineffective in piercing this hardened shell and dealing any meaningful damage, making combat with the entity extremely difficult. In addition, the worm's exterior layer has been known to glitch or stutter when its full body is in motion, which is assumed to be the combined effect of its titanic size and extremely low stability in local reality. The mouth of the memory worm is most commonly described as a gaping maw, filled with razor-sharp teeth that make a spiral shape down its gullet. It has been observed that these teeth have the ability to rotate inside of its mouth, allowing it to tear through prey like a chainsaw. Each tooth is around 16 inches in length and extremely dense. It should also be noted that the memory worm may have the ability to physically alter its bodily appearance. Some rare accounts of survivors describe the entity with drastically different features than what is most frequently observed during encounters. For a list of documented alterations, see the supplemental documents at the bottom of the article. Behavior. Heed not the call of the devourer. The beast of the disgraced bears only false truths, a distraction from our meager existence. The lecherous scourge shall not overcome our will, not with its siren song, nor its unbridled fury. Fear the spiraling abyss of lustful disorientation. Never shall one live to see the day in which we slay the beast, but for that reason alone we must endure. Brethren, even the cruelest of horrors still hold value, though imperceptible to most. We must perceive the beast's truth. We must learn from it not to dwell or contemplate upon that which is past, for living within our memories shall deprive us of the beauty of the now and the hope of the hereafter. Excerpt from Tu Hamalo Vivila Tot Colero, or The Lost Book of Space, Volume 6. The memory worm is driven by one thing and one thing only: its eternal hunger. The entity is plagued by an insatiable starvation. its farmishment only ever temporarily subdued by the constant consumption of memories. It has been observed feeding in many ways, frequently through the consumption of memory juice, or by swallowing its human victims whole. However, it also seems to possess an extreme appetite for memory jars. Footnote. Thankfully, it seems that the memory worm's ability to sense memory jars is quite limited in range. Unless the entity is already nearby, activating or opening a jar is not likely to trigger an attack. End footnote. This particular craving is so great that it will even stop a hunt if it senses any nearby. Currently, this is the only known way to reliably lure the memory worm to a given location, or to interrupt one of its rampages. Given the wide availability of memory jars across many circles, wanderers are advised to carry some on their person at all times as a distraction in the unlikely event of a worm attack. See attached file 1A for more information on the memory worm's feeding habits. Another of the worm's notable characteristics is that it possesses some semblance of sentient will. The entity has been shown to hold grudges against wanderers that harm or escape it, as evidenced by the attached interview. Supplemental documents. Open documented alterations. Note: the following alterations to the memory worm's physiology are primarily evidenced by word of mouth. As the wanderers who have reported these deviations may still have been under the memory worm's extra-normal influence, it is advised one take these with a grain of salt. Wanderer Jacob Wesson reported the following deviations. Its normal skin was replaced with an inky black exterior. The worm possessed multiple tentacle-like appendages that would translocate themselves across the body at random. Various mouth-like openings with jagged edges were present across its body. Wanderer Emil Anderson reported the following deviations. The worm's maw had morphed into a mammal-like jawbone, and its mouth was capable of opening and closing. The worm's skin appeared a slight bright red. Wanderer Yaniv Abrams reported the following deviations. The memory worm's size was drastically reduced, being able to fit inside of a small room. The worm appeared to be growing a wispy type of hair on its back, near the front end of the head. The worm's skin was a darker shade, closer to that of an actual worm, opposed to its normal reddish brown. Wanderer Sarah Craster reported the following deviations. The memory worm's body was significantly thinned, and it appeared to be much longer than normal from her point of view, having encountered this creature before in its normal state. All of the worm's teeth were missing, leaving only a gaping hole at the front of its face. Wanderer Atlas Bruce reported the following deviations. The memory worm's entire body was entirely a shade of pure Vanta black, seeming to absorb the light around it to an extent so that it appeared almost two-dimensional. A massive glowing white symbol in the shape of the Greek letter Omega was placed directly on the center of its forehead area. Open Supplemental File 1-A. Feeding Habits of Entity 42. Unlike most members of phylum Annelida, the memory worm does not need to consume nutrients to survive. Instead of consuming prey for the purpose of restoring energy, the main purpose of the memory worm's hunts appears to be to sate a purely psychological hunger. The memory worm prefers to hunt in a slow-paced ambush style, often favoring having its prey come to it than vice versa, similar to that of a Venus flytrap. The entity is blind and hunts off of vibration and sound. Considering the esoteric structure of the Backrooms, this allows it to take a more unique approach to hunting, as the worm does not need to be in the same area as its prey to sense it. While animalistically the memory worm is highly intelligent, comparable in intellect to that of a common cephalopod, it possesses great problem-solving capability and adaptability. If a wanderer or entity is caught by the memory worm in this state, its life essence and memories will be completely drained. A telltale sign that one of its hunting nests is close by is the sopping, multi-flesh pile of partially devoured corpses, fused together by the toxic saliva of the worm. While preferring the aforementioned method of hunting, this by no means implies that the memory worm is incapable or unwilling to hunt prey in a more conventional manner. If deprived of memories for an extended period of time, it will enter a state of blind, hunger-driven madness, using all of its energy to barrel through whatever level it currently inhabits until it hunts down and consumes a victim. Considering its gargantuan size and reality-warping abilities, encountering it in this state is extremely dangerous and to be avoided at all costs. File prepared by Meg Entity Research Specialist, Gums. Open Interview 1-B. The following log is an audio-visual transcription of an interview between Meg Agent Jackson Brown and a young wanderer named Avalon Daikondo. Agent Jackson, state your name and occupation for the record, please. Avalon. Avalon Daikondo. Is it even possible to have an occupation here? Jackson. Well, it depends. If you associate with a particular group, people often have a specific job. For example, I could say that I'm a Meg field agent. Most people just say wanderer, though. Avalon. Alright, in that case, I'm Avalon Daikondo, wanderer. Jackson. Thank you. Jackson. On to business. It's come to our attention that you've had an encounter with Entity 42, or the Memory Worm. Yes? Avalon. That's correct. I unfortunately crossed its path a few times in my days here. Jackson. More than once? Allow me to offer my sympathy for the experiences you've had. Avalon. Thanks. That thing is rather unpleasant. She chuckles nervously. Jackson. What was your first encounter with the worm like? Avalon pauses for a moment, letting out a deep breath as she recalls the jarring memory. Avalon. I was in level 1, traveling to the hub, in order to get somewhere a bit safer. I was coming back from meeting an old friend at his house in level 11, when I stepped on some unstable ground and got no-clipped into the good old concrete zone. Avalon. After letting out a little bit of colorful language from the situation, I ended up walking down a pathway that led me straight into the hallway where the memory worm was hunting. Avalon. As I was walking, I started getting a very calm feeling of nostalgia. Being here for a while, I was quite accustomed to this type of feeling. You know how whenever you end up in level 0, you get that weird, calm, uneasy sensation in your gut? It was like that, but stronger. Thinking nothing of it, I pressed on, straight into the trap it had set for me. Jackson scribbles a few notes into his spiral-bound notepad. Jackson, do you think it's possible there was an aforementioned effect preventing you from recognizing the danger? Avalon. Truth be told, I really don't know. I think of myself as generally observant, so it's possible. However, I could have just been an idiot. Jackson. I see. Carry on. Avalon. After a few more seconds, maybe minutes, I don't really know how long it was, time seemed to flow inconsistently when I was around that thing, almost like a dream. I was completely out of it when it was happening, but afterwards the absurdity of it all hit like a truck. Jackson. So let me get this straight. So far, we have artificial nostalgia and time alteration, yes? Avalon. Correct. This cycle continued in intensity so far to the point that I didn't realize where I was anymore. I had gone from an ordinary concrete hallway straight into where that thing was waiting, its hunting nest, if you will. Jackson, can you describe this hunting nest? Avalon. It was gross. The walls, floor, and ceiling were completely covered and dripping with this thick, gooey, warm, and viscous substance. It was opaque and white, and I swear I could see these small, stringy things inside of it. It looked like clam chowder from hell. Jackson laughs. Jackson, clam chowder from hell. That's a new one. This material usually shows up at memory worm attacks, and it has loads of atypical properties that would definitely cause the things you experienced. Did you happen to get any of it by chance? Avalon. I was standing in a puddle of it. Jackson. That'd do it. The memory worm saliva is one hell of a drug. Avalon. I noticed. I was there. The interviewee chuckles at her own joke. Jackson reciprocates with a small grin. Jackson. Anyways, carry on. If you could remember how you snapped out of it or escaped, that would be very helpful information. Avalon. Now that you mentioned it, there was something that sobered me up. Aside from being inches away from a vortex of teeth the size of a subway car, by some miracle, a loose pipe of almond water burst above my head and ended up drenching me, sobering me right up. Jackson tilts his head, frowning. Jackson, really? That's new. We'll need to conduct further testing, but this could prove very useful in the long run if it can counteract the trance effect. Avalon, happy to help in any way I can. Jackson, your cooperation is always appreciated. What happened next? Avalon, well, the worm definitely seemed to notice I wasn't under its control anymore, and it got pissed. The ground started rumbling, and I wasn't about to stick around to see what happened next. I bolted for my life. Avalon, I ran down the corridors, and the worm chased me through. Luckily, I was in an area with very compact halls because it seems the worm definitely had a hard time squeezing through to chase after me. It was practically ripping up the concrete as it slithered behind me. Eventually, I came to the entrance to the hub, and I turned around to see its maw slam into the doorframe behind me. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that the entire lobby tunnel of the hub shook like it was in a tornado. It seems something else was stopping the worm from entering, because otherwise there isn't a doubt in my mind it would have. Avalon pauses. Avalon leveled that whole place. Jackson facepalms, trying to hold in a laugh. That joke was awful. Jackson, anything else? You did mention a second encounter with the worm. Was it pretty much the same? Avalon, no, it was something out of a fever dream, even in comparison to the weirdest stuff in this place. Jackson, well, don't let me stop you. Avalon, I think that thing holds grudges. After I escaped, in every level I entered, I'd always start to feel that same feeling from the first encounter. I'd always leave after that occurred, not wanting a repeat of the first incident. But one time I was asleep. Avalon, I was on some beach level. I can't recall much about it, but when I woke up, I felt a rumbling underneath the sand. The water in the distance was frothing, and I could make out something enormous over the horizon. Avalon, still trying to shake off the drowsiness, I started walking across the beach to find somewhere to get out. After a few minutes, I checked back to the ocean to see the most enormous creature I've witnessed in my entire life. Avalon, this thing had its entire body above the waves, stretched more like a serpent than a worm. This thing looked like a Jorgenmonder, and one of those sandworms from Dune had the most angry baby you could possibly imagine. Jackson, that's quite the analogy. What happened next? Avalon, well, I thought I was worm food, until two beings stepped out of a spatial tear behind me. Avalon, one was wearing glasses, a black trench coat, and was carrying a scythe. He looked like if they had cast a younger Elton John as Neo in The Matrix, and then gave him even more combat gear. More interestingly, his arms were completely covered in bandages. Jackson, interesting. Did you catch a name? Avalon, not exactly, but the other figure called him Argos. Jackson scribbled something down in his notebook. Avalon, the other figure. He was dressed in what looked like the clothes of a medieval knight. Note: Meg Research and Review of this document has concluded that this figure was most likely the Red Knight. The furious scribbling continues. The agent's brow is furrowed. Avalon, are you okay? You seem confused. Do you want me to repeat anything? Jackson, no, it's fine. It's just a long day, that's all. Please go on. Avalon, alright. Anyways, like I was saying, these two individuals came up and started fighting this thing. The one called Argos led me away from the fight and force-clipped me to level 6.1. Before I left, I could see the knight and the worm locked in an intense battle. That guy must have been ridiculously strong because the worm's entire body seemed to shake whenever he struck it with his sword. Even so, the worm was keeping up with him. I don't know what happened after, as I began to clip. Jackson, is that all? Avalon, yes, the worm hasn't bothered me since. I still have no idea what I experienced. Jackson, neither do I. This is way above my pay grade. Thank you for your time, Avalon. Please help yourself to a bite to eat on the way out. Avalon, thanks, Agent Jackson. It was a pleasure meeting you. Jackson, likewise. Take care, Avalon. The feed cuts here. Addendum. Argos is an entity hunter now? What the hell is going on with this thing? The Red Knight too? The two of them together? What the fuck? This worm might be a bigger deal than we thought. Jackson. Do's and don'ts. Do. Slowly move away the moment you think you see it. It hunts primarily off of vibration and sound. Pay heed to any strange underground rumblings you hear while in outdoor levels. Use memory jars to distract the worm and make your escape. Keep almond water on your person to prevent becoming entranced. Don't. Approach the memory worm intentionally for any reason. Fall for its illusions. Linger within a location whilst experiencing feelings of unnatural nostalgia.